Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thanks.
Congressman Roger Williams speaking out after he and an aide were injured in today's Alexandria, Virginia shooting. My goodness, Eric. I mean, this has been the start of the day. I don't know about you and Kat, but I was getting text messages starting shortly after everything happened with so many questions. And here we are several hours later with still so many unanswered questions.
So what a day. So this day developed at 7 o'clock. This started throughout the day. You heard what was going on. And what I found out is this event was like a metaphor for America. Think about this for a second. A baseball diamond. What's more American than baseball? Nothing. Representatives representing Americans on the baseball diamond. A charity event, a bipartisan charity event, a softball game. This is all Americana in every respect. And then this one, a chilling email to a congressman recently, within the last hour and a half or so, saying 1 down, 216 to go, meaning GOP Republican Congress people. Both scary day and sad day in America. But I'll tell you, the last piece of Americana was them saying we're going to play that ball game tomorrow at 7:05.
I completely agree, Kat. Obviously, earlier we saw the joint press conference from the coaches from both the Democratic and the Republican side. But many people speculating that this kind of bipartisan moment of unity can be short-lived. What is your prediction on that?
Well, of course it can be short-lived, and something like this, you can't really have any thoughts but bipartisan thoughts. And like Paul Ryan said, an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us, because it's very shocking, especially when you think about what would have happened if there would have not been the police there, which if there would have been any other group, they wouldn't have been there. Yeah, that's what makes it the most horrifying.
Exactly. Armed police.
For sure. Armed and trained. Armed and trained.
Yep.
Let's go to Fox News correspondent Leland Vittert, who's live from Alexandria, Virginia. He's very close to where the shooting happened. Leland, thanks for being with us.
Hey guys, nice to be with you. And the investigation still continues. It is painstaking to recreate events like these. Go ahead and take a look. You can see the evidence collection teams right by the third base dugout, and that is where eyewitnesses say that James Hopkins emerged with this high-powered rifle. As we speak, you see these men they're laying out the markers of where there's bullet casings and other evidence they want to look at. The FBI and ATF trying to run down 2 weapons, the unmistakable rifle that so many people talked about that they saw Hopkins emerge with, and then also a handgun. Take a listen now to that shootout.
Do we know where he's at? Do we know where he's at?
He's behind home plate.
Guy been shot. Is he okay?
Stay down! Stay down! Stay down!
That was the exchange of fire between Hopkinson's there at the third base dugout, and then where you see these agents walking across by the third base line. Steve Scalise was playing second base, so just there where those evidence teams are. Follow a little bit further, Mr. Wallace, just to the left here, and that is the dog park where the video that you just saw was being taken. The shootout, 3 to 5 minutes long, 60 or so bullets that was very clearly targeted. Take a listen to one witness.
Let's see the dog.
Based on what you could see, was it clear that this gentleman who the gunman was focused on shooting on the baseball field? He wasn't sort of randomly shooting at civilians or other people in the neighborhood.
He was not randomly shooting at civilians from what I saw. He seemed to me to be focused on shooting at the, I assume, Capitol police officers who were behind a black SUV exchanging fire with him.
The House Majority Whip airlifted off of the field in critical condition after surgery. One member of his security detail shot but will be okay. Another hurt but currently out of the hospital. The captain, the chief of police for the Capitol Police, saying that their heroic actions certainly saved a lot of lives out here. We are learning a little bit more about the gunman from his Facebook page, that he called President Trump a traitor from Belleville, Illinois, just outside of St. Louis, where the local paper reports lots of letters to the editor, clearly very angry with Republican policies, and also learning from Capitol Hill that at one point he volunteered for then presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. Take a listen to Senator Sanders.
Sickened by this despicable act, and let me be as clear as I can be. Violence of any kind is unacceptable in our society, and I condemn this action in the strongest possible terms.
And word from the FBI, who is now leading this investigation, that developments are coming very quickly. Guys, we expect a press conference from them approximately 5:30, so just about 25 minutes or so from now, with what they have learned since this began. We're now about 10 hours into the investigation from those first shots.
Thank you for those updates, Leland. And a quick alert. Senator Rand Paul, who was a witness, an eyewitness to today's shooting, will be joining us in just a little bit here on the show. But now let's meet today's specialist. She is the author of The Selfie Vote, and she's co-host of the Pollster podcast, but she specializes in everything, both politics and polling. Kristen Soltis Anderson is here. And he has won 5 awards from the National Press Club and the Society of Professional Journalists. He's also the current editor-in-chief of The Hill newspaper, but he specializes in interviewing the big names in politics, including Congressman Steve Scalise. Bob Cusack is here. Thank you both for being with us on such a very, troublesome and high-profile news day. I guess I'll start with you on this, Bob. You have interviewed the whip, and I went to law school in New Orleans, so a lot of my friends know him well. They are his constituents. What was running through your mind when you first heard he was injured and shot, and we didn't know his condition?
Well, I mean, it really affects you. I mean, Steve Scalise, number one, he's a big sports fan, obviously playing
LSU,
sports.
Yeah, sure.
LSU. He's also a very down-to-earth guy. We interviewed him on getting the votes for Obamacare, repeal and replace, and he is just not all lawmakers are down to earth, but he's just a regular guy, and it does affect you, because whether it's Gabby Giffords or these attacks on Capitol Hill, I've been on Capitol Hill when there's been a shooting, not as bad as this. I mean, it is a very scary situation.
Eric, I want to start with you as well, because to Bob's point, one of my good friends is Congressman Cedric Richmond, who is a Democrat, and he is a colleague in the House with Whip Scalise. And when he came out in support of Congressman Scalise as a Democrat, he got a lot of backlash. And I think that is symptomatic of where we are in this country around the type of result and just the lack of compassion people have for one another as people. And like you said, the Americana and the humanity is being lost.
Well, yeah, we're becoming more and more divisive and divided as a country, but the political rhetoric is getting ratcheted up on both sides. Let's be fair and balanced about it. On both sides, it's happening. But in fact, there's a Wake Up America monologue where I address exactly that. What's going on? What's the reason? Where are we? Is this, is this America or is this Raqqa? This is more like Sunni on Shia violence than it is Republicans versus Democrats. But Kristen, I think it's relevant to note that this guy, he was a Bernie Sanders campaign worker who was a devout socialist who walked up to this baseball field and asked the representative, are these Republicans or Democrats? And when he found out they're Republicans, he decided to open fire on the group.
Well, politics has become so tribal. And look, I don't think Bernie Sanders has any responsibility for this whatsoever. In fact, of all the politicians out there, I don't view him as being someone whose rhetoric is over the top in a way that would encourage someone to violence. But we definitely have in America this increased tribalism in our politics. So my specialization is polling. I know not everybody loves it, but right before the election, Pew asked some voters, who are you voting for, and could you respect someone who voted for the other candidate? Among Trump voters, 40% said they could never respect a Clinton voter. Among Clinton voters, 58% said they'd have a hard time respecting a Trump voter. We can't even respect each other as people.
I believe that 100%. The backlash my mother, a lifetime Democrat, faced for her support of President Trump, to the point where I was covering the inauguration, as Eric, you, Kat, as well. She wanted a Make America Great Again T-shirt. I refused to get it for her because I was literally afraid as to what the reception would be in her community.
Yeah, well, first of all, we don't see enough of people blaming the shooter for shooting people. I think that it's okay to, of course, examine the climate surrounding it, but this is this guy's fault. If a 66-year-old adult man shoots a bunch of people, maybe it's that adult man who shot the people's fault that he shot the people. But I think this goes beyond Trump. If we are going to talk about the rhetoric, the way that people talk about Republicans, it isn't just the way they talk about Trump. It's that if you support small government solutions, then you are taking someone's food away to starve their kids, and you're pushing them off, their grandma off the cliff with the other hand. So that is really certainly does make Republicans look like evil people. I think that that's a problem. I think it's also very disingenuous, because just having a different approach to solving problems is not the same as wanting people to die. But I think that it takes a special kind of evil, disgusting person to go shoot a bunch of people, regardless of what other people are saying.
You just used a very important word, where you said they want people to, quote unquote, die. Let's talk about the Republican health care plan that they pushed a couple of months ago. Here, these are Democrats who have said this. Bill de Blasio said it's not an overstatement that saying some children will die because of this. This is heightened rhetoric. Cory Booker goes ahead and said it'll cost Americans lives. Nancy Pelosi, this is deadly. This is deadly. Bernie Sanders says thousands of Americans would die. The Democrats, aren't afraid to use that word when talking about a Republican policy. And you're going to tell me that crazy people aren't going to hear this and go, oh, my God, they really are going to kill us. What do we do?
But you could argue that, for instance, if you're somebody that supports really strict gun control, and we've had a lot of arguments today about to what extent would these folks have been better protected if they could have their own firearms to protect themselves. In that debate, you can see someone saying, look, if you don't give someone the right to protect themselves, you're putting them at risk for dying. I mean, there are ways that political rhetoric, in talking about policy, can talk about issues of life or death. That in no way excuses someone actually going out and killing someone.
You can be upset, you can be mad. People don't grab guns and go shoot a bunch of people.
Except for people do now.
This is this guy's fault.
I think this is happening.
Sure.
People, evil does that. Human beings don't do that.
That's the point, though, Kat. Exactly. Evil people, evil individuals. So I'm agreeing with you there. But look, I talked about this earlier on my radio show. I do think at some point we have to look at the fact that the rhetoric is starting to merge with the reality, and to kind of, I don't know, at this point, blindly think that they're always going to be distinct from one another, I think is naive at this point. I really do. That's my personal opinion on it, because I'm seeing the correlation firsthand.
Would you agree that it exists on both sides?
No, 100%.
Right.
To Eric's examples,
as well.
There are also people that felt, because they so strongly disagree with President Obama's foreign policy on various points, that everything was going to, we were all going to die because of that as well.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's horrible and it's egregious. Up next, Senator Rand Paul, who was at the baseball field as today's attacks unfolded. He will join us in his harrowing experience. Stay with us.
Senator Rand Paul was one of the Republican lawmakers at the scene of today's shooting in Alexandria, Virginia, and he joins us now from Washington. Senator, you were on TV this morning on your phone, and you were very compelling. Can you take us through what you experienced this morning around 7 o'clock this morning?
Well, I just been up to bat at home plate, and they told us to take 5 cuts. And you know how it is as a baseball player. You sometimes think, maybe my 5 cuts will be 8 or 10 cuts. But today I said, you know what, I'm going 5 cuts. And because I chose to do what I was supposed to do, I was walking away as the shooter was preparing. I walked over to the dugout, and Senator Jeff Flake from Arizona said, can I have a ride home or back to Capitol Hill? And I said, sure. I said, but I'm going to go 1 extra cut at the batting cages, which was yet farther away. So I walk a little farther out, and I'm putting on my helmet, and we hear a loud shot. And, I live in Kentucky, so people hunt in my neighborhood, even in the bottomland around my neighborhood, so it's not uncommon to hear a shotgun. I heard a loud shot, and it sounded really close. But like anything else, you think, well, I don't know what that was, but we were just about to say, well, let's get started again. But then we heard 5 to 10 shots quickly in a row, and we knew something was wrong. And then we heard 10, 20 more shots, and probably maybe a total of 50 or 60 shots. At this point, everybody's ducking for cover, everybody's scrambling. 2 staffers were in left field, and the shooter is along the third baseline hiding behind the dugout, sort of a concrete cinder block dugout. 2 of the staffers raced the whole warning track, the perimeter of the outfield, and so they're right next to where I am. There's a big oak tree, a couple 100-year-old oak tree right next to the batting cage. I'm behind that tree. There are two staffers on the other side of the 20-foot fence. About this time, we see that the shooter shoots Representative Scalise, and he's down. And people are yelling, "I'm hit," all around the place. So the two guys on the other side of the fence, one of them, you got to make a decision. It's a tough decision. Do I lay still and hope they think I'm dead or they don't come close to look? Or do I decide this is not a good place to be? While they're laying there, the bullets are landing all around them in the dirt of the warning track. So one of them decides he's coming over the fence. It's about a 20-foot tall fence, chain link fence. I think he set it in record time. He was over in 2 seconds. I'm not sure I was going over it that fast if I had to. But I'm on the outside of the fence. He joins me. We're behind the tree. But at this point, we hear that he's changing magazines, loading again, firing again. And it's sort of like a killing field. All across the whole wide open field, nobody can get to Scalia. Scalia's down, but he's moving. And he's crawling very, as much as he can into the outfield, although he's got a pretty significant, gunshot injury, but he crawls about 15 yards. Still no one can get to him because there's bullets spraying across the entire field. The people in the first base dugout, it's a submerged dugout. You know what this is like, Eric. You go down about 2 feet to get in the dugout. They're down below the lip of it, but the bullets are going into the dirt in front of the dugout and bouncing up into the back of the dugout. We hear at this point that the shooter seems to be moving, and it seems like he's going towards home plate, which means he's coming to the right half of the field where we are, where most of the players are, and fortunately where the Capitol Hill Police is located. So the staffer and I are behind the tree. We've got to make a decision. We got to run across a fairly open field, but in the opposite direction of the shooter, or we can stay and see what happens. But we sort of made the choice. We were unarmed, and nothing we could do against, somebody with a semi-automatic rifle. So we decided to run at that point, and at about that point is where we start hearing the Capitol Hill Police, who are just amazing heroes, begin firing back. I found out later that they were both shot in the process. We lost the signal. We lost our signal.
We still have you, Senator. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? All right. Okay. So we lost the senator. And Eboni, you pointed out this morning, he had mentioned that had it not been for the Capitol Hill Police,
they would have just had baseball bats, to defend themselves. And, I wish we could have gotten to ask him this, because this is my question, Eric. Congressman Roger Williams said that they do that 6 to 8 a.m. practice every year. My question is, I wonder if people know that and if they know where they are located for those practices, because I'm just wondering how this crazy madman,
Right. Think about how horrifying that is, having no idea what's going on. And that's the kind of thing, if you watch a movie, you see it in a movie, it happens to other people. It doesn't happen to you. I don't know how I would react to that. That's absolutely terrifying.
Kristen, you guys and Bob, both of you live in D.C., am I right? Is that
right outside D.C. in Virginia.
Right.
So a lot of people know about this game, and a lot of people know about the practices, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can find out this information. And the thing that, it's so fortunate that Scalise, and we pray that he recovers, but that he was there, because otherwise you have no security. And this brings up the question of lawmaker security, because senators, average senators, rank and file, they don't have security following them.
Let me throw this at you. I think it was estimated that Betsy DeVos, cabinet secretary, her security costs somewhere around $1 million per month. One person. You're talking 535 members of Congress times $1 million times 12 months. That's over $6 billion. Listen, we have a $4 trillion budget, but $6 billion is a lot of money.
Well, what's really tragic is that in any of these situations, whether it's protecting lawmakers, when it's protecting us from terrorists at airports, things like that, the fact of the matter is, living in a free society, there is always danger.
Right. Guys, allow me to just break in for a second. We have Senator Rand Paul back. Senator, we have just about a minute or so. Can you just summarize and let your final thoughts?
At this point, the Capitol Hill Police are returning fire, and you talk about the real heroes of this. Both of them were wounded in returning fire, but had they not been there, I think it would have been a massacre. We had 15, 20 other people hunkered down around the field with no defense. So we were really lucky Capitol Hill Police was there. And I want to say thank you to them.
All right, Senator, we're going to say thank you very much for joining us. I know you've been a very, very sought-after guest today. Thank you for coming on our show. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, Senator, thank you. Coming up, when we return, it's time to wake up America about the escalating climate of violence we've been talking about through this A block. Be right back. Let's chat, America. It's time we did. Earlier on the show, just a minute ago, you heard Rand Paul's bone-chilling account of the events this morning. Where are we when in a society when a guy like Steve Scalise, a wife and 2 kids, is gunned down on second freaking base? Congressman Mo Brooks described the terror he felt while lying down in a dugout being shot at with, quote, just a baseball bat for defense. Don't lose the poetic irony on the fact that this happened on a baseball field, the most American of American pastimes. Is this America or is this Raqqa or Yemen? So today, this was clearly politically motivated as the shooter was a Bernie Sanders 2016 campaign volunteer. And here's the socialist hiding a poster with his politics written all over it. So this was a targeted attack on Republicans, no doubt. You know, American politics has been called a blood sport where both sides are using strong words to refute the other side's policies. It's been that way for 240 years. That's America. But there's been a sea change recently in the words liberal politicians and celebrities are willing to use. Democrat politicians have been playing fast and loose with the way they disagree with the right on the GOP health care proposed law just alone. Cory Booker, a Democrat from New Jersey, said this will, quote, mean death, pain, and suffering. Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat governor of Virginia, said people are going to die. Yep, Virginia. Let's call it the home field for today's shooting. Listen to Democrat and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch go too far.
I know it's a time of concern for people who see our rights being assailed, being trampled on, and even being rolled back. It has been people, individuals, who have banded together, ordinary people who simply saw what needed to be done. They've marched. They've bled. Yes, some of them have died.
Spill blood, die. Really, ma'am? Snoop Dogg's gun, Kathy Griffin's head, Shakespeare's bloody rampage. It goes on and on. How many innocent people have to die before we realize that words do matter? Crazy people act on the crazy things they hear from politicians and celebrities. Think before you utter those blind, hateful words next time, liberals, because there are crazy people out there taking your metaphors literally. Before you liberals blow a gasket saying I'm being partisan, I will tell you, I will guarantee you this, I would be writing the same monologue and delivering the same monologue if it were a Democrat softball practice targeted and terrorized. That, I promise you. Now, Kat, I think you yelled at me in the A block saying this goes both ways. But it does go both ways. If there were Democrats being targeted, is this Republican or Democrat, and then they get shot, I would be having equal amount of outrage.
It does go both ways, and there's no question that people have reached a level of just disgustingness in their rhetoric when they talk about the other side politically. But my question for you is, what do we do about it? We can tell everybody to be nice. I am not okay with banning any type of speech, because just like you can't look at this and say we have to, Second Amendment's no good, you can't look at this and say the First Amendment is no good either. So how do we solve this, I'd ask you?
Well, I think you implore politicians not to use these metaphors like dying, killing, death, blood, spill blood, and whatnot.
I've been saying that for a while.
Because, there are, like I said, these are just metaphors in normal people's minds, but in crazy people's minds, they take them literally.
Yes, Eric, I agree. I hate this. And I started this morning with a tweet that was met with a lot of mixed reviews that begged of people in this moment of prayer and, you know, praying for the family, the 2 children and the wife of Rep. Scalise, that we not politicize this moment. And by that I meant, because at that time we didn't know the politics of the shooter, I meant not go into our pro-Second Amendment and pro-gun control arguments that we knee-jerkly do every time something tragic like this happens. But here's the point, Eric. You're right. Words do matter. I completely agree with you. So that's why when there are metaphors depicting President Trump, ISIS style on a stick, I have a problem with that. Just like I have a problem with people saying that President Obama should have eaten a gun. Because the images that they conjure up are so problematic, because some people, if they're already on a slippery slope to crazy, they go that extra step.
But here's something that really unsettles me a lot about this situation. So a lot has been reported about the man, and that it started with op-eds about tax cuts and things. How do you get someone who cares a lot about actual policy issues, which is a good thing?
Allow me to break in again. I apologize. This is the Alexandria Police.
Of the FBI's Washington field office, and I'm here to provide an investigative update on the shooting that occurred this morning. I would like to thank the Alexandria Police Department, U.S. Capitol Police, and medical response teams who responded to the scene this morning for their quick and decisive actions, actually saving lives. I remind you that this is an active investigation and details continue to unfold. I stressed this earlier, and I'm going to underscore it now, that the FBI is not going to talk about the character or nature in which we are investigating this case, other than to say we continue to work this as an active investigation and an ongoing matter. There has been some confusion about the injuries involved. Our statement sent out earlier today, this afternoon actually, identified the number of victims and their injuries. Let me just review that quickly for you. 5 individuals were shot: a congressman, a United States Capitol Police officer, a congressional staffer, a lobbyist, and the subject. An additional 2 individuals, a congressman and a Capitol Police officer, attained secondary injuries at the scene and were transported to local hospitals and treated. As for the subject, and this is the only time that I'll be referring to him by his name, this afternoon we released a statement noting that the subject name was James Hodgkinson, 66 years of age, of Belleville, Illinois. He succumbed to his injuries at the hospital, and the D.C. medical examiner has issued the cause of death as multiple gunshot wounds to the torso. The FBI has issued a seeking information poster identifying the shooter, and it can be found at www.fbi.gov. While the subject is deceased, we continue to actively investigate the shooter's motives, acquaintances, and whereabouts that led to today's incident. We will continue to have presence as we process a scene here in Alexandria, and FBI agents are searching the shooter's home. His residence is Belleville, Illinois. The subject's vehicle was located on scene and has been swept by Alexandria PD and the ATF, and we will be processing with our FBI evidence recovery team as well. Obviously, we are looking to glean what we can from the contents regarding his electrical devices that he owned. Law enforcement has reason to believe that the shooter has been in Alexandria, Virginia area since March of this year. The FBI has issued, again, seeking information poster that is located on our website, asking the public to come forward with information on the shooter. To the local Alexandria community, we believe that the shooter has been living out of his vehicle in the vicinity of East Monroe Street, therefore asking you to report any interactions that you may have had with him. Likewise, the subject traveled from his residence in Illinois, and we are asking and speaking with individuals who know him personally or who may have encountered him on his travels. If you have information, please call the FBI 24-hour tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI and select option 1, or visit tips.fbi.gov. So again, FBI's 24-hour tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI and select option 1, or visit tips.fbi.gov. All tips will remain confidential. No amount of information is too small to report. law enforcement will remain on scene until processing of the scene has been completed. We ask that the local community for your patience and your cooperation as we complete this task. Further updates will be shared via written statements unless law enforcement collectively stand behind me advises otherwise. I'll open it up for a few questions in just a second, but I want to turn it over to Chief Brown from Alexandria PD for a couple comments.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mike Brown, BROWN, Chief of the Alexandria Police Department. I just wanted to get back and give a status as to what we're doing in this community to try and reassure the community in terms of the safety and the security of our residents. Right now, we are canvassing the immediate area out here, doing door-to-door with our colleagues from the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department, so that we can reassure people in the community that we believe this incident today is over, although the investigation will continue in this area for a while. We are also working with some of our other departments in the city, for example, with the Department of Community and Health Services, to make services that are generally available for these kinds of situations available to our community over the next couple of days. We care very much about our residents and the people that come to visit us in this city, and we're doing everything we can to reassure them that this is a safe community and that your government and your public safety personnel care deeply about it. That said, you'll see a lot of law enforcement and fire personnel working this area trying to reassure them of such. So I thank you for that, and as a part of the department, we will continue to work with the FBI and as they move forward on their investigation. Thank you very much.
Special Agent Slater, did he have a vendetta against Republicans?
I have no comment on that.
Do you know whose shots brought him down?
It was a multiple local law enforcement response, so I do not know at this time.
Was it both the Capitol Police and the Alexandria who responded and shot him?
I'm not going to comment on exactly who it was. It was multiple local agencies.
Can you talk about, your release talking about the weapons, can you give us a little idea of what you're trying to run down on the weapons?
The only comment I'll make about weapons is one handgun and one rifle.
And what are you trying to learn about those?
Where they came from, who bought them, how he acquired them, all the logical investigative leads.
St. Clair County officers interacted with him in March in Illinois. Was it shortly after that that he came here? Because you say he's been here since March.
We believe he has been here since March, so I'm not going to comment on the specifics of that. Ma'am?
Was the Capitol Police officer shot in the original round of gunfire or when the exchange of gunfire?
I'm not exactly sure on that, ma'am. Don't have a comment on that.
Is there anything about
Sir?
his location, for people who may have seen him, is there anything that you can say about what he was doing in these couple of months that may help jog people's recollection of where they may have seen him, what he can do?
No, that's what we're really asking the public to help us with, because we're just not sure at this time.
Have you spoken to his wife?
I'm not going to comment on that. It's part of the active investigation.
Cusack, or any kind of, was he on the radar of law enforcement before? Not just here, but in Illinois?
So I'm not going to comment on that either. So really, we're exploring all angles, and we're not going to be limited by, we'll let the facts take us where it goes.
Witnesses say he was handcuffed. Was he still speaking and conscious when he was taken away?
I can't comment on that. I'm not sure. Ma'am.
Did he stop anywhere between Illinois and here that you know of?
That I'm not aware of. No, ma'am.
Do we know if he was working in the area?
It appears that he was not working.
Can you tell us the conditions of the victims?
I'm not going to comment on the victims. What I have about the victims is what I've already provided.
Which other congressional members?
Do we know?
Identities of everyone else?
I believe... Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'll get back with you on that. We'll put it in the next... Sir?
He's been staying in his vehicle. Can you describe the vehicle and is it from Illinois? Do you have Illinois plates? Can you give us anything on it?
So the only comment I'll make is a white cargo van.
Can the Capitol Police talk to us about their officers and particularly those who were injured and returned fire?
Hello, Deputy Chief Fred Rogers for U.S. Capitol Police, representing Chief Matt Federosa. We did put a statement out today, and the Chief wants to commend Special Agent Crystal Griner, David Bailey, and Henry Cabrera for their heroic and appropriate response to protecting members of Congress today. He's grateful for Special Agent Griner, who is in good condition at the hospital, having been shot in the ankle. And Special Agent Bailey was treated and released, having sustained a minor injury during the incident. United States Capitol Police is dedicated to the mission of protecting the United States Capitol, members of Congress, and staff, and the visiting public. And today we saw how our officers' extensive training was put into action. We also like to thank our partner agencies, the FBI, ATF, U.S. Park Police, Virginia State Police, and especially the Alexandria Police for their work in helping us to respond and mitigate this incident. We continue to provide a robust and visible presence at the Capitol complex and to monitor national and world events to provide a level of security that's appropriate for the U.S. Congress.
Can you describe Officer Griner's response after being shot and continuing to work to get the suspect?
That's part of the ongoing investigation, and I won't comment on it.
Just for people who don't understand the mission of the Capitol Police, the agents who were with Congressman Scalise, give us a sense, is that a protective detail? What's their mission? Are they always with protectees? How does that work?
Their particular assignment today was to protect the congressman.
Chief Brown, was he the only one that had protective detail? Was he the only one that had protective detail today?
Today's date, we had Capitol Police officers assigned to monitor this event.
Chief Brown, there's video and there's audio recordings of the gunfire and the gun battle, and it would appear to have been ferocious. With by a layman's count, dozens and dozens of shots fired, and people screaming, "Get down!" Can you describe what your officers and what the Capitol officers were facing when they came in?
I won't go into the specifics of the investigation, but I've heard the video and I've talked to some of my officers at least, and or some of them, and quite frankly, it was not only chaotic, but it was a combat situation, and that's something that law enforcement is trained to do. Our officers are trained to do. I'm very proud of the officers at APD and the officers from the Capitol Police who stood their ground and did their job. More will come out of this when the facts are known and the investigation is complete. But I couldn't be more proud of the Alexandria police officers.
They were up against somebody with a semi-automatic weapon, and they were returning fire, engaging to begin with anyway, with handguns?
As I mentioned earlier, they did engage in a firefight. I won't get into the details of that because that is also part of the investigation. We, like every other agency, rely on doing a shooting investigation anytime we have a discharge of weapons, and we are doing that right now, and to get ahead of that would be not fair for the officers and not fair for the agency. We'll deal in the facts when they can become apparent. But our officers are doing fine. We're taking good care of them. We're very concerned about them. I'm personally concerned about them. But they did a great job today, and I'm very proud of them.
Were your officers already on the scene before the shooting, or was it when they responded to the 911 call then in that sort of game?
We received a call of shots fired, as I mentioned this morning, at 7:09 in the morning. Within 3 minutes, we had all 3 units here. Some of the units were here earlier, and they were engaged upon their arrival. Chief, and I won't go into any greater detail than that because of the investigation.
Chief, had your officers had any encounters with Mr. Hodgkinson in the months that he has been here till today?
I can't speak to that right now because that's part of the investigation, and I don't want to get ahead of the investigation. The FBI has the lead. We're working with the FBI, and at some point in time, we'll be able to give you that information when it's available. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure of that. We'll have to get back to you on that one.
Sir, is there any indication he had discussed this with anyone else, or that anyone else was involved in this in any way?
No, that's part of the investigation, so I'm not going to comment on that.
Do you have anyone else in custody?
We have nobody else in custody.
Security on the gun, sir. Does he have both of those guns on him?
I'm not going to comment about the guns, other than one handgun and one rifle.
Attributed to him?
Potentially.
Did he have the handgun on him, or was it in a car?
I'm not going to comment on the guns.
Special Agent, the entire conversation about the shooting today has centered around how it could be prevented. Some people have said if you had more Capitol Police protecting congressmen, it could be protected. If liberals talk differently about President Trump, it could be prevented. Do you expect your investigation will give us any answers to that question that everybody's asking?
No, I just ask that you let us run the investigation, and we'll let the facts lie where they may.
What can we expect out of the investigation? We know that you all have concluded that he was the shooter. What else can the FBI, what else will the final report provide to us? What do you hope to answer?
So we hope to answer motive and why he was here and why he did what he did.
Can we get a comment on the increasing number of death threats that congressional members are facing since the shooting? A lot of them have been coming out saying they're receiving a lot of death threats.
I have no information about that. We'll ask the Capitol Police. No information on that at the moment.
How will we handle that?
I have no comment on it.
Is there any reason, why do you think he chose this game? Is there any information yet of why the game?
What do you mean?
Why did he choose today? Why did he choose?
Oh, I have no indication of why. Why today at all? No, sir.
Or this
Security
place?
being
Or this
increased at
place.
National Park tomorrow.
I can't speak to the security at the national park, sir.
Might this be a question of opportunity? He was living basically on the street. The politicians came to him, essentially. And might it simply be that this was an opportunity where his previously expressed anger on social media lashed out?
Well, we'll figure that out as the investigation unfolds.
Okay, just one more question.
Do you have any indication at all that he knew that this practice was going on here, or whether this was a random person?
We have no indication that he knew this was going on. No, sir.
Are you, and you're not actively seeking any other suspects in this?
No, we're asking for the community's help, and we'll run it out where it leads, where it goes.
But as of now, you're not asking the community, hey, be on the lookout for anybody else. You're not searching for anybody else.
Not at the moment, but we don't know where this will lead. Okay?
Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we were just listening to a press conference offered by the FBI, the Alexandria Police Department, and the Capitol Hill Police Department. Noteworthy is the reason why there was Capitol Hill Police there at all was because Steve Scalise is what's called the whip. It's a part of the leadership group in both the Senate and in Congress and in the Senate, meaning the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader, the Minority Leader, the whip, and so forth. That's the reason they get 24-hour Secret Service and Capitol Hill Police, one or the other. So the reason why this wasn't a Rand Paul massacre, as he points out, was because they were there. Eboni, I wanted to ask you something. One of the things I think that was most important tidbit of information we got out of there is they're looking for potentially a larger group here. Is he a lone wolf, or is he part of a larger group? And what's the motive?
And yes, certainly, Eric. Is this orchestrated? Were there people helping him? Obviously, they're having to kind of track down by hand whether the legal status of these weapons. He wouldn't comment too much. It's an active investigation. We know at least it's one rifle, one pistol. Did he buy them himself? Was it a straw man purchase? Those things are going to be looked at very closely.
Kat, we may have producers, we may have that full screen up here, talking about a larger group. One of the things that we, throughout the day, if you're on social media, we saw that he had a couple of Facebook pages, he had some social media pages, but one of them was liking this page right here. Now, early in the day, it's called Terminate, capital letters, Terminate the Republican Party. There was some pushback, some people saying, hey, things like that shouldn't be allowed on social media.
I think that's taking it a little too far. Terminate the Republican Party could obviously mean disband the Republican Party. I think when you start to go down that route is where you start to get in trouble. There's plenty of people who I'm sure in that group that aren't going to hurt anyone, that aren't going to think of it that way. Again, could being that strict and that draconian in a sense in social media prevent crime? Yes, it would, but we would also be getting rid of all of our freedom. That's the thing about this country, is that we do take a little bit more risk.
So you don't think that would fall under some sort of hate speech that, you know, they pull a lot of social media accounts down for things, maybe not even that provocative.
I suppose, but terminate the Republican Party could mean anything.
Gotcha.
It doesn't necessarily mean if it was murder the Republican Party, look at that. But not that it's nice rhetoric. But if you're going to start talking about, you know, getting criminally involved in it, I don't know about all that.
All right, Kristen, what do you think of how the investigation is unfolding so far?
Well, I think I'm very interested to find out how this man went from being someone who writes op-eds about tax brackets, what I was saying earlier. His poster, the picture that's been going around, it talks about taxing the rich. We need 20 tax brackets, but it's not advocating violence. It's someone who's very passionate about politics, and that's something that we want to encourage. So what was it that led him down this path from being someone who was passionate about politics, nothing I agree with him on, I'm sure, to be someone who takes it to such an extreme? What does that path look like, and how can you stop that from
And that's
happening?
my point, Kristen, is I think that path, maybe many of us like to think of that as some long stretch. I think it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter with each and every passing election. And I'm very troubled today when I see this type of thing.
Bob, you know what the shorter and shorter period seems to be? That anytime there's a mass shooting, the left starts pointing the gun control argument, starts bringing that to the forefront.
Right.
How long before we hear that?
Oh, we've already heard some of it already today. But I do think the politics, I've been in politics, covering politics for 20 years. It's never been worse. The political temperature is too hot. I mean, think about this. The 2000 presidential election, contested. Was there any violence? No. But if the 2016 election had been contested, would have there been violence? I think so. I just think, and I agree with Kat, you don't curb the First Amendment, but the politicians have to watch their rhetoric. They have to curb their own speech in order to not set off people.
Mm-hmm. Motive, it seems to be the most important issue here. What is it? Is he simply a socialist that's lost his mind and said, I'm going to take this into my own hands? Or is there something bigger here?
Well, this is the thing that it now may be harder to know with certainty. I mean, we can know all of the things that he's liked on Facebook, all of the things that he's posted on social media. He may have left something behind. We don't know. But take, for instance, the issue when the man shot Gabby Giffords, Jared Loughner. He did not die. We were able to find out afterwards that he's just genuinely a crazy person. He wasn't radicalized by the right wing, as many folks on the left said when that happened. It turned out he was just a crazy guy, but he was still alive, and so we could find that out.
Well, we had that from his friends also. His friends saying that the people at school were literally terrified of him, so he had to go.
In this case, because the shooter has died, that will make it a little harder to find out exactly what the thought process was.
We have a lot of, we have his rap sheet. It's fairly extensive. Yep. He's got domestic violence. He's got some other, I wouldn't call him not extensive.
Not from what I've seen, unfortunately, Eric, in my days criminal. But yeah, he's got some things there. And so again, this goes back to the legal issue question around did he own this gun legally or illegally, and certainly that will make a difference. Again, I'm just wondering because oftentimes the other issue we have with gun control, Eric, when we start talking about this in the political sphere, is mental health. Everybody, it's bipartisan support around the furtherance of mental health evaluations when it comes to who should have a gun in this country. And what I'm asking, and this is a legitimate question, traditional mental health, schizophrenia, bipolar, we know of that stuff. But what about our politics and this Trump derangement and all of this hyper-partisan crazy, I think is becoming a real thing. That's my fear.
Kat, what do you think? Is this going to be a pro-gun control argument, or will this end up being an anti-gun control argument, saying if there were more people who were armed in that park at that time, maybe this wouldn't have happened? Or certainly, look, God forbid Scalise isn't there today, and there's no Capitol Hill police. It's 10 minutes maybe before the Alexandria Police Department gets there. How many are dead?
I think it's going to be the same people who make each argument, making it again. I think that it's a human thing to see a tragedy and want to change policy, to want to restrict policy, which is exactly why we have the Bill of Rights and exactly why it is so hard to amend the Constitution, why the process is so long and complicated, because, it's for a reason. It's so that we don't act based on emotion. And I thought that was a great point that you brought up, that, if he had not been there, then this would be a totally, totally different story.
But, Bob, that's different. That's a well-intentioned, thought-out thing you just articulated, Kat. That's different than people that look at a tragedy like today or Congresswoman Giffords and then conveniently put it into a political narrative that suits their conveniences.
Yeah, and you see that all the time in politics, and that's where we're talking about Gabby Giffords. I mean, that happened 6 years ago, and then you had when her triumphant return to the Capitol, very nice. I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. I'm pessimistic. I hope so. I hope so. But Eric, you were mentioning, the rhetoric of the war on or political war rooms,
blood in the street. Exactly. I mean, these are metaphors, and we all do. The media is not innocent either. We do the same thing. We do. But the problem is when crazy people listen to it and look up to celebrities or politicians or media personalities, they take it literally, and then they take things into their own hands, which I would say is a better argument for the Second Amendment than any of this.
And that's the other thing, too, is there's no argument for the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is the argument itself. People don't take it seriously, and they should. Okay, it's the Second Amendment. It's not anti-gun control, pro-gun control. It's, at least talk about it in terms of changing the Second Amendment, which obviously not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get gunned down on second base in a softball practice that you're about to play a softball charity game, you can get gunned down anywhere in America.
But you can. You actually can. And that's the thing. Curtis Sliwa, my co-host over on the radio show, he's been shot 5 times.
You have a co-host?
Yeah. Don't get jealous.
Co-host?
Don't get jealous, Bolling. He's a good friend of yours, too. 5 times he's been shot, this man, right here in the streets of New York City. So a lot of people feel like today is a little bit of a wake-up call for Washington, D.C. to feel how, and not in a this is what they deserve way, but maybe this is the type of firsthand experience some people need to realize how dangerous this world really is.
Kristen, Mrs. Adrian Bolling yesterday said, I have a document I want you to fill out and fax back to the police department. It's a gun permit. She wants a gun permit. She sees all this going on. I think Americans are saying, I have a right to bear arms. as Kat points out, I'm going to do it.
Well, I go all over the country. I do focus groups and talk to people about what they're thinking and feeling. And folks across the political spectrum right now feel unsettled. They feel unsafe. They feel like things just aren't quite going their way. And they're angry at Washington, but they're also angry at the anger in Washington, that they feel like they'd like the temperature to be turned down a little bit. But I think right now across America, even though we've had a change of administration, with a lot of this change, people are feeling very unsettled. They're not feeling particularly safe right now. And I think when people are nervous and scared, that's when more scary things happen.
And Bolling, just real quick, it's not just Adrian. I am someone who is like thinking, and we live in New York City, it's hard, but of course I'm not going to even fake in front. Of course I'm thinking about, I don't want to be a lame duck sitting here.
And you're 100% accurate. And you know what? It is one of the most difficult cities in the country to get a gun permit.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's easier to get one, you know, now in D.C. than it is here.
But the difference is I will get trained and I'll know how to operate it well and correctly.
Bob, I posed this to Kirsten in the A block. Is it worth what could be several $1 billion to make sure that all these Congress people are protected?
I don't think so. And a lot of members say they don't want that protection. So, but I do think one of the things about the humanity of today was Senator Flake called Scalise's wife and said what was going. Can you imagine getting that phone call? I mean, it's so frightening. But no, I think a lot of members say no. I am a member of Congress. I know the risks, but we've all been at events, and you do feel scared sometimes.
And by the grace of God, Kat, Flake was calling Scalise's wife saying, he's okay.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
I mean, honestly, it could have been very different.
It gives me chills to think about it. It really does. But again, I haven't heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't heard any congressman saying or congressperson saying that they want that they want to have everybody have their own.
Give it a day or so. Give it a few days.
Yeah. I just want to say again, thank you. Of course, I know I speak on behalf of all of us here of the Capital City Police. Their name, Special Agent Crystal Greener and David Bailey. Because, like you said, Eric, but for Scalise himself being there, this would have gone a whole nother way.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to leave it right there. We're going to say thank you to our Fox News specialists today, Kirsten Soltis Anderson and Bob Cusack. And we want to thank all of you for watching. Make sure to follow us on social media, Specialist FNC, on both Twitter and Facebook. Remember, 5 o'clock will never be the same. Special report is going to be all over this. Brett's coming up right now.